So Violet Jessop didn't actually escape 9 different near-death experiences, but she did have repeated escapes from some very massive maritime disasters and one extremely deadly childhood illness. So during childhood, in around the 1890s, she had tuberculosis. She was born in Argentina and suffered from several serious illnesses as a child. Tuberculosis nearly killed her, and doctors repeatedly told her parents that she was going to die, but she recovered, which was uncommon at the time, to say the least. She was then in a boat called the Olympic, which had a collision in 1911. She became a stewardess on board boats, and she was a stewardess on board the Olympic on the 20th of September 1911, when the enormous passenger liner collided with the Royal Navy warship HMS Hawke. The impact tore a very large hole on the Olympic's hull, but the ship remained afloat and returned to port. Nobody died, so Violet wasn't in immediate, personal mortal danger, but it was the first major maritime disaster she was involved in, and the other 2 were sister ships of the first one. Next is the sinking of the Titanic, and this is definitely the most famous one. Less than 7 months after the Olympic crashed, Violet joined the crew of Olympic's sister ship, RMS Titanic, for its maiden voyage. I think we all know what happened. When the ship struck an iceberg on the 14th of April 1912, Violet was instructed, along with many other stewardesses and stewards who were on board, to stand on the deck and demonstrate calm behaviour. This was particularly for passengers who couldn't understand English, because obviously if you're on a sinking ship and you don't speak the language that everyone else is talking, you're going to panic. She was eventually placed in a lifeboat and handed a baby to look after. From the water, she watched the Titanic sink as more than 1,500 passengers and crew lost their lives. And then finally, we have the sinking of the Britannic. So only a few more years later, in 1916, during the First World War, Violet worked as a nurse aboard the third sister ship, HMHS Britannic, which had been converted into a hospital ship. On the 21st of November 1916, the Britannic struck a German mine in the Aegean Sea and began sinking. Violet entered a lifeboat, but the boat was dragged towards the sinking ship, whose enormous propellers were still going. She jumped into the sea moments before the lifeboat was destroyed. During this, she struck her head and suffered a skull fracture and lost consciousness, but was rescued and survived again. Despite surviving tuberculosis, the Olympic collision, the sinking of the Titanic, the sinking of the Britannic, Violet returned to sea, and she continued working on board ships until retiring in 1950. And she lived to the age of 83. Very, very dedicated woman is the word I'm going to use, because if I was on 3 boats that sunk, I think I would stop going on boats.